We here at the Cinefanatics are so we're so hopeful, and we enjoy everyone who comes to watch us, even though I bungle like what I'm going to say at the beginning of these cold opens. And eventually one day we hope to be just like the Star Wars saga as well. Well, fat chance of that ever happening. What's going on, y'all? We are the Cinefanatics. My name's Robert Adams.
I'm Chris Adams.
And it is time for the Tagline, the show where the tagline is the title. We're here to talk about some movie news, what's going in and out of the movie world, and yeah, all kinds of whatever ramblings happen in between all of that junk. How's everyone doing tonight? Thank y'all for being here as we are watching this at the top of the show. Those of y'all that watch on a replay later, we appreciate y'all watching, still giving us a view. Make sure you hit that like on the video and subscribe. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm okay.
That's good. That's all we could ever really hope for, is everyone's at least okay. Garth, fat chance of that happening. What, y'all starting on time? Yeah, possibly. We just had like a little technical difficulties. I feel like that's like what every YouTuber says when they're doing a show and they're first starting out, like that beginning of that show. If it's delayed at all, they're like, technical stuff, don't worry about it.
Truth be told, though, there was some technical stuff on my end since I have a new PC and a new setup that I'm trying to work with. So,
well, I wasn't going to throw him under the bus, but he wants to just cart his butt under that bus as is, so go ahead. Anyways, let's go ahead and do the YouTube things. Y'all know how this works. Y'all have any questions, comments, issues, complaints, streamlabs.com/Cinefanatics, a good way to get our attention. Also, patreon.com/Cinefanatics. If you think that we are worthy of it and you have the funds and the means to support us, please hop on the tier that is good for you. We just started a new month today, apparently, which reminds me, I got to pay rent. So we are going to have the dates set up for the Patreon, the watch along, and the movie trivia hangout. We will probably get that done at some point and announce those dates next week. So don't know yet at the top. I just started a new job this week as well, so my mind is all over the place. Anyways.
True.
Oh, thanks for adding that. Anyways, moving on. Upcoming stuff that we have going on. We dropped the podcast yesterday, which was episode 9, predicting the MCU post Quantum Mania. We're having just a nice little simple discussion. Where's the state of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Where's it headed? Where's it going? It was kind of a fun conversation, just nice theories and ideas of where we think it could go based on the fact that we're movie lovers and also know a fair share about the comic books and how that relates to the movies. It's a fun listen to. Go check that out. Almost everywhere you could get your audio podcast, there's also a video version right here on this channel, so watch that as well. Let us know your thoughts, comments, everything on that as per usual. Tomorrow we will be seeing Creed 3, so expect probably a media out of the theater reaction on the YouTube shorts. Those are kind of fun to do, and it's really nice, quick, simple, easy content. Quickly film it, and it's out, and it's usually up and available before we even leave the parking lot. So I'm kind of enjoying those. But we will have a full non-spoiler review probably up later tomorrow night, so be on the lookout for that. Let's see, this Friday, because Creed 3 is coming out this weekend, we have decided to do a marquee tier ranking the entire Rocky and Creed franchise. So that will be happening this Friday, usual time at 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern. Big announcement here is our special guest for that episode. We will be joined by the one, the only, you know him as the Outlaw, Mr. John Roca will be joining us on tier ranking. And oh my God, we got new pictures of us also. Holy crap, that's awesome. Anyways, yes, John Roca will be joining us for ranking the Rocky and Creed movies. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. Again, that will be this Friday, 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern. Make sure y'all stop by, hang out. Should be a lot of fun. And what else do we have coming up pretty soon? We've got the watch along. The Oscar watch along is coming. Oscars are coming up on March 12th, Sunday, March 12th. We will be doing our usual annual watch along. So come watch us live and see our immediate reaction and confusion when someone gets slapped, because that was a whole lot of fun last year. It's funny going back and watching that now. YouTube has the thing that shows you like where the most watched parts of the video are. And everyone's only watching that one bit.
It's true. I mean, it's the only part that anybody really cared about the Oscars last year, it seems. This year, I feel like people care a little bit more because I feel like there's a lot of hype around a bunch of movies, certain movies winning awards, and because RRR is going to be doing the Not Too Live.
That's probably the biggest thing that I'm like the most hyped for the Oscars this year. You read that thing. I didn't put it down as like movie news to talk about, but you read that thing where it says like they've got a crisis team now in case anything happens like live, they can quickly address it.
Wow.
No one's getting slapped again out of the entire Oscars. How many times did someone get slapped live on stage? Once? So... although that's kind of similar to like say the state of Texas like 2 years ago when we had that giant ice and snowstorm and it shut down all the power, and as soon as like the power came up and everyone was able to drive again, they all went and bought generators. Like, how often do you think this is actually going to happen?
Depends on whether or not you think the state can handle it again in the future if it does.
Well, 2 years later and we were shut down for like what, a couple of... we still had power, but I know a lot of people were without power for like a couple of days again.
I hear LA's facing it right now too.
Do what?
I hear LA is facing it right now too.
Oh yeah. LA's getting all the ice and snow and rain.
All the fun.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of like the LA River, and it actually looks like a river. There's actually water in it, so go figure. Anyways, back on topic. Again, we will be doing our annual watch along of the Oscars, so that will be Sunday, March 12th, 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern here on the Cinefanatics channel. Feel free to watch along with us. It should be a lot of fun. Usually we have a pretty good time doing these every year. So that is coming up in a couple of weeks. So,
yeah.
Anyways, Chris, what movies have you watched this past week? And those of y'all in the chat, what have y'all seen recently? Anything y'all recommend?
I watched a little movie called Babylon. It was a movie that came out this last year. Could have maybe been in the discussion for the top 10 movies of the year when we made that list earlier, had I seen it in time. Except that it probably wouldn't have. I was not the biggest fan. And everyone's like, oh no, wait a minute. Didn't Damien Chazelle direct this movie? Isn't he the one that directed your favorite movie, La La Land? All of that is true. As it turns out, you can have your favorite movie be by a director and also dislike another movie that they make later on.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the fun thing about Babylon, though. I will say there is actually some really good moments in there. It's technically actually a pretty solid achievement of a movie, I would say. He does some really good like one-shot takes in the movie. Like, I think what happened was there's stuff that he did in Whiplash, or stuff that he did in La La Land, and that these were kind of the things that kind of set him up to want to try to go bigger and do more of this stuff, say in Babylon. And you can kind of see the effect of having learned certain techniques through those two prior movies, and maybe even in First Man. There's some techniques he learned in those prior movies that he did in Babylon that I think actually like added to Babylon a whole lot. There are beats and moments that I feel like were similar to La La Land in a way. A lot of the music sometimes felt like they were just like a different note off from being similar sounding songs that appeared in La La Land. But other than that, the movie features a lot of debauchery, a lot of excess. That kind of stuff I'm usually not a fan of because I usually get exhausted by it very quickly. So I'm not like huge into that. Was kind of manic with a lot of that stuff. That being said, there were great character moments. The actors were fantastic. Diego Calva deserves all the praise that he has gotten for his role in the movie. The ending I thought was fantastic. The movie as a whole, though, probably the lowest on my Damien Chazelle list right now, and I don't have any intention of pretty much ever watching it again because it was 3 hours long, and I can't devote that amount of time to that movie ever again. The other one I watched is Rocky 5. That was a first time watch. It's the only Rocky movie that I hadn't seen yet. So watch that one and you will find out where it ranks for me in the entire Rocky list this Friday.
Spoiler alert, it's in the same place that it is for like anyone who watches Rocky 5.
Is very likely. I don't know. I'm not as big a fan of Rocky 3 either, so you don't know. Maybe one of those movies is a little bit higher than the other. Who knows?
We'll see.
You'll find out.
I also watched Babylon, and I completely agree. It's a whole lot of debauchery and excess. I do kind of think of it. I like having it compared to. It's Damien Chazelle trying to do Quentin Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson, specifically from Paul Thomas Anderson, specifically Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
With a little hint of Uncut Gems. It has like that anxiety driven in some scenes. The opening scene of the party, whatnot, is very rapid pace. The next major scene of them filming that movie like out in the desert is extremely fast, rapid pace. So it is very anxiety driven, like Uncut Gems. But I loved it. I thought it was funny. Like I thought it was a great movie. There is some gross moments in it, but yeah, I thought it was really good. So
one of which those gross moments you had to turn your head at.
I did have to turn my head at one moment in that movie. So
I want it known that I didn't turn my head at anything in that. Well, no, I'm joking. I actually turned my head at something at the very beginning because I was eating dinner at the time, and those two tastes did not go well together. But had I not been eating dinner, I probably would have stomached it fine.
That's funny. I don't know if I would put it like at the bottom of my list of Damien Chazelle. I think I enjoyed it more than First Man. First Man was good, but it's just very slow paced. So
it is.
I didn't enjoy it as much.
We gotta get you to rewatch La La Land again too.
Probably. There's a very good chance I will probably enjoy La La Land upon a rewatch. I'm just not a huge fan of it. So,
yep.
So Jared's recommending. He's wanted to recommend a group of movies. He said he's been going into the DC anime. First of all, DC animated movies in general are great. That is one thing that DC movies do well is the animated movies.
I would even say they have it over Marvel because the Marvel animated movies are usually kind of like, okay, well, they exist. They're there.
Well, Marvel just stopped doing those. So.
Yeah.
And the Marvel ones were okay. They had a couple of good ones. Catwoman Hunted.
Fine.
And Batman the Long Halloween. I watched the part 1 of Long Halloween. I need to watch part 2, but and then Garth is also saying Mandalorian season 3 started today. Yeah, so like I said earlier, I started a new job this week. Unfortunately, this job does not afford me the luxury of being able to watch The Mandalorian when it drops on Disney Plus in the middle of the night like I'm so used to. So I didn't watch it until right after I got off work at like 5 this afternoon. So
I will say it's actually kind of funny. My watching last night consisted of Creed 2 and then The Mandalorian, which if you think about it, there's a couple connections between the two. One of which obviously Apollo was played by Carl Weathers, who plays Greef Karga in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But also, did you know that Creed 2's music was done by Ludwig Göransson, who also does the music for The Mandalorian. So there you go. A couple connections between the two.
There's that, and I've ever since like the first episode of Mandalorian, I always thought that like the music of Mandalorian, the main theme, kind of sounds like the theme of Going the Distance from the first Rocky movie.
There's a reason for that.
I
think he did. I think he might have done the first Creed too.
It's very similar. But
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
even though that was Bill Conti, not Ludwig Göransson.
He would have done the first Creed also because he did the Black Panther movies.
Yes.
And he's got a good working relationship with Ryan Coogler, who I'm pretty sure was also still producing for Creed 2. So. And I guess at this point, Michael B. Jordan. So I wouldn't be surprised, I think, if Ludwig Göransson's doing Creed 3 as well.
I believe he is. Anyways, and then the other new movie I watched was Cocaine Bear. I got the review up on this channel, spoiler free, so go check that out. That was a fun movie. it was an enjoyable movie. Especially like the people that were sitting behind me in the theater that, like, sometimes I have a love-hate relationship with this. The type of people that when they laugh, they can't help but laugh out loud. And this was a type of movie that's hilarious. It's great hearing that, because it's like some of the slapstick humor of this movie is just out of nowhere. And to hear someone behind you just erupt in laughter is great in that moment. But then there's like some movies where it's just like unintentional comedy and you get someone that laughs like that and you're like, that's not the best time for that kind of laughter.
Right.
But that's just me nitpicking and judging people's laughter, and whatever. Let's move on. Let's go to movie news.
Ladies and gentlemen,
good evening. This is what's happening in your world tonight.
We apologize for the interruption.
back to you.
Yes. And it's time for your box office roundup this week. Let's go back to the age-old fun question. Can we guess what the number one movie in the box office this weekend was?
That would be Cocaine Bear. No, I believe it was like Ant-Man, I believe, beat it by like, what, 10 million, something like that?
A little bit less than that, actually.
Okay.
Or a little bit more than that. A little bit less than that. Math.
It's
a little bit less than that.
On there. Yeah.
It's about 8 million. It beat it by Ant-Man and the Wasp beat Cocaine Bear by about $8 million, which is great for Cocaine Bear's opening week, terrible for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania's second week. So that's kind of the big news story right now, is that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, while still number one, only pulled in about 31.9 million, which is a significantly large drop off of about 69 to 70%. That usually doesn't happen for quite some time. To be able to drop off this much from your first to second week it's not a great thing for that movie. I love the pundits online that say like, the MCU is in trouble. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're not going to be in trouble pretty much ever. They're never going to be in trouble. They're doing great. This particular movie is probably not going to join the $1 billion club of their movies. But I will say that they'll probably make that up with, say, maybe Guardians of the Galaxy 3. There's always another movie. Yeah, there you go. There's always another movie coming out, another one for them to scrape together a ton of money off of. It's a multi-billion-dollar running franchise. I don't think they're stressed out too much that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania slightly underperforms.
I'm also beginning to wonder, is this like a placebo effect? Because we've now gotten to a point where like almost all the movies in Phase 4, with maybe the exception of like Shang-Chi and Wakanda Forever, have lower critical reception on them. People just did not like those movies as much as they typically like Marvel movies. And I'm wondering if that is having a placebo effect on future Marvel movies. That people are just looking at it like, I don't think this is as good as it could have been, because the last one wasn't as good as it could have been. And that's already in people's heads. Because you hear a lot of people on Twitter like they should have stopped after Endgame. So
yeah, there's a conversation to be had as to whether or not the quote unquote issues with the MCU right now are the creators being stretched thin. The visual effects department, production, writing staffs, all that stuff. If they're all being stretched thin on these productions, because they're usually cranking out about 3 movies and then like at least 4 shows a year almost at this point. Or is the issue with audiences, and is that issue an actual like superhero fatigue, I think that's mostly just in critics, and I think you see mostly critics having a great, another superhero movie. Not general audiences. General audiences typically love the superhero genre. In this case, they might have just had some general audiences that were like, not a big fan of this one for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is. I thought the movie was smashing, but I don't know, why a general audience might not be as interested. I don't necessarily know that general audiences are experiencing superhero fatigue, though. So there's that.
That's kind of hard to say because for some reason it's just superhero movies now have a target on them. No one was ever saying that about having like war movie fatigue. Like, I'm tired of all these war movies. But I mean, also in general, we're not seeing like 2 or 3 war movies coming out per year like we do comic book movies.
At least none with as big of a splash that the Marvel Cinematic Universe gets.
Yeah, and the 2 or 3 that come out a year are just the 2 or 3 only from the MCU. We're not even including like if DC releases any movies that year. True. Or any other possible superhero movies that could come out, whether it's like something from Image Comics or some other like a movie about a superhero, but it's not an actual like comic book. It's some random character. So,
yeah. So anyway, yep, that's your number 1 movie. Number 2 is Cocaine Bear, of course, with $23.2 million. Great opening for that small budget movie about a bear who, discovers a new happy hobby. Number 3 is Jesus Revolution. This tells me we're having a situation once again where we have the Deadpool kind of beating out the Passion of the Christ for the number 1 R-rated spot. It kind of feels mirrored to that. Of course, obviously Passion and Deadpool did not come out in the same weekend.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting situation because Jesus Revolution actually gets 15.88 million. Lionsgate getting a huge bump from the evangelical crowd, of course. Number 4.
If only they had a cocaine bear in that movie. If Jesus just had a cocaine bear with him, it would have done much better.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, number 4 is Avatar: The Way of Water.
I'm going to church on Sunday for that one.
There you go. Number 5 is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Number 6, Magic Mike's Last Dance. Number 7, still hanging out in top 10. Kind of crazy it's still here. 80 for Brady. Football season's over. I don't know why people are still going to see this movie, but apparently they are still loving it. So there you go.
They're not ready to say bye to football season yet.
Maybe we should be doing an 80 for Brady watch to spout off news about how and why this movie is sticking in the top 10 for so long.
Yeah.
Number 8 is Knock at the Cabin, which I believe is available for home viewing now, correct?
The which one?
Knock at the Cabin.
Knock at the Cabin. Oh, that's right. I did watch that. I also watched that over this past week. Yes, it is available for home viewing.
There you go.
And so is Magic Mike.
Magic Mike's last
Magic Mike was out for like 2 weeks, and now it's available for like video on demand at home. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. So that's Warner Brothers. It's been out for 3 weeks now. That's crazy. Knock the Cabin has been out for 4 weeks. So, I think we're going to start seeing that 1 month to 45 days is about as long as we're going to start seeing before they start being released for VOD. Anyway, number 9, number 10 are the same as last week. Number 9 is Missing, and number 10 is A Man Called Otto. So Titanic is no longer in the top 10. I don't know if that actually made enough of a splash. Looks like so far total gross domestically for its re-release is about 14.5 million. So
Titanic made a huge splash.
Just move on.
Yeah. So real quick, yes, I did see Knock at the Cabin this past week as well. I actually kind of enjoyed it. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, you can tell it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie, but you kind of can't as well. So yeah, I thought it was really intriguing, but there's definitely some parts of it I was like, this is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's interesting to see like how many of these movies are still like hanging out in top 10 and doing well, despite the fact that they are available for home release. It's almost as if people are just fine with still going to the theaters. Who knew?
Yeah. Anyways,
Speaking of
so
going to the theaters, you know what I want to see this year? The goal is to try to try to get it before Garth gets the mute.
yeah. What's going on with that Barbie watch?
Oh my goodness. I want to go see Barbie in the theater this year, but you know where you're not going to see Barbie in the theaters or really premiering? The Cannes Film Festival. Canes? Raising Canes.
Probably one of those countries that just hates women.
France. You're not going to see it in France this year. At least, during the premiere.
Was that something that we were counting on? There's nothing that necessarily screamed Cannes Film Festival with Barbie. So I don't know.
Wow, Garth, I'm offended that you want to mute us while we're in the middle of talking and sharing important information. That's deeply offensive to me.
If you're going to mute us, why are you watching? Never mind.
Anyway, it's not going to show up at Cannes, whatever.
Cannes.
I don't think everyone really knows how to pronounce it, to be honest. Not even the people in France.
Captain Kirk does.
Titanic made a big splash. So it's not premiering along with Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is also not premiering. So there's two big movies coming out on the same day that will not be premiering at the film festival in France. I'm not saying the name anymore. It is interesting, though, to note, and I'm looking at this thing because I saw that I could have sworn I saw something else. Oh, yeah. So it looks like there is a chance that Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon will actually premiere there, which is big because we know we were looking for and wondering when that thing is going to get a release date this year, knowing that's probably going to be released closer to award season. But the big news here, Barbie, we're looking forward to her. She's not going to be touching down in France this year, unfortunately. So, that's it's kind of a big. It's kind of a big piece of news, I guess. You want to see a big worldwide premiere for Barbie, and unfortunately, it's just not gonna.
I really do honestly feel like at some point you're just scraping the bottom of the barrel just to play the Barbie watch.
What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
Damn you. I got to wait till tomorrow.
Early by one day.
Yeah, I can't wait one day. Speaking of film festivals, I will go ahead and announce it here because I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with this information yet. But I have gotten a badge for the Alamo Drafthouse's Fantastic Fest this year. If y'all are not familiar, Fantastic Fest is one of the biggest horror sci-fi festivals that's hosted by the Alamo Drafthouse here in Austin, Texas. And I am extremely jealous and disappointed to the fact that I did not go last year because those of y'all that like horror movies, last year was a banger of a year for horror movies, and almost all of the really good horror movies premiered at Fantastic Fest. So we're going to hope that this year is also good, and I'm going to see those premieres at the end of September. So not sure exactly what I'm going to do as far as content on that yet, but I've got a lot of time to figure that out. But knowing me, I probably won't have anything planned until like the last minute. So be on the lookout for information about that more as we get closer to September.
It's many, many months away. You've got time.
Yeah. Again, I'm still probably going to wait last minute because that's what my ADHD does to me. So whatever. He just randomly plays it. Yeah. When Barbie is hitting VOD or when it comes out on like Blu-ray for us to buy.
When you least expect. I'll be there playing Barbie Watch.
That is creepy.
You hear that noise? That's my chair. That's not me.
You look like that overly excited girlfriend or whatever. Yeah.
Not overly excited. I forget what the name is, but yeah, she's overly attached. That's it.
Liana.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's sure.
Something like that.
The overly attached girlfriend.
Yeah. It was a video she was making about her excitement over Justin Bieber. So I know the history of it, but yeah, it's funny. Moving on. So Guy Ritchie, who has a couple of movies coming out at the same time, apparently, has been on the interview circuit, as you typically do when you have a movie that comes out. He's been questioned about Sherlock Holmes 3, which I guess apparently he was saying that that's just up to Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, so the interesting information about that is that Robert Downey Jr. actually has a lot of say. In fact, most, if not all of the say in the terms of that movie being made or not.
As he should.
Which, to be fair, I mean, Robert Downey Jr.'s star power is so high at this point. It literally makes sense. If your lead actor just can't make it happen, it's not going to happen. You're not going to make a Sherlock 3 and recast Robert Downey Jr. and it still be the same, continuity as the first two. So Guy Ritchie said, look, I'm down to do it. I'm ready for it. Just waiting for the studio to give me the green light, and the studio is only going to give the green light if Robert Downey Jr. says, yeah, sign me up. I'm ready. So whether we get a Sherlock 3 or not, somehow, some way, depends on the shoulders of Robert Downey Jr., which I think is fair.
Yeah, I saw some report or whatever that said that he made $243 million off of the Marvel movies. He's in no hurry to do anything, or at least he doesn't have to. I can understand if he does want to do the Sherlock Holmes movies again, because it looks like that was fun for him.
Yeah.
It looked like he was actually probably enjoying that role. So
discombobulate.
Yeah. I'm willing to bet we'll probably see him do that, just because no matter how much money he has, he's the type of person that he just enjoys making movies.
But also, what's the last thing he's done? Was it Doolittle? He took some time off there for a little bit, it feels like.
Endgame.
Doolittle came out after Endgame, but I mean, once the MCU kind of ended for him, it looks like he's kind of just been taking a break, getting a little rest action in, which I think makes sense. So it might be a while before we see him pop back in and do another entry into some kind of franchise of some sort.
God, I hope not.
Absolutely not. Please no.
Lego's I'm only interested in Jude Law. Did you see that Peter Pan and Wendy trailer?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, Jude Law is Captain Hook.
Has he got eyeliner?
They did some weird makeup wig on him. There's one quick shot of him at the end of the trailer, and it's kind of weird looking.
I feel like ever since Hook, every live action depiction of Hook has had eyeliner on. Guyliner. Yeah.
I still use Hoffman as the standard for Hook, though. So.
Oh yeah.
I guess Robert Downey Jr. is in. Well, that makes sense. Everyone's in Oppenheimer, so
Oppenheimer is forthcoming. So
yeah. Anyways. Oh, and then I guess he was also asked about Aladdin 2, saying that it's up to Disney.
So Guy Ritchie seems to be enjoying the idea of passing the buck off to other people. Robert Downey Jr., it's up to him for Sherlock 3. It's up to Disney for Aladdin 2, which I feel like that's the most unsurprising statement a director could make in regards to shooting a sequel to a movie, that it's really kind of just up to the studio as to whether or not they want to do a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to talk bad about him. I think he's perfectly fine making these statements. I think if people are asking, this is the correct answer to give, which is, hey, your guess is as good as mine. If the studio wants to do it again, I'm here. I'm ready. Let me know. But if not, it is, it's on them if they want to make another one or not.
So realistically, what I would suspect would be happening is Disney may be wanting to wait to see the reception of his live action Hercules, because he's still doing the live action version of Hercules. I know there was mixed reactions to his Aladdin. So they may be wanting to see if he can do just a little bit better on Hercules, and then they may give him the opportunity to do Aladdin too.
I think it also depends on like how much control Disney has over these kinds of movies. Like obviously they let Kevin Feige do whatever he wants with the MCU. They're kind of letting to some degree like Dave Filoni and other Star Wars creators kind of do what they want with Star Wars more or less. That's really more on like not Patty Jenkins. Well, I mean, obviously she, isn't able to do what she wants to do with Star Wars right now, but producer, Lucasfilm producer.
Oh, Kathleen Kennedy.
That's who I meant. The kind
15
of
seconds, yo.
kind of letting her kind of take the lead on Star Wars stuff. So I don't know that Disney's like really fully the kind of studio that wants to like dive in and keep a tight grip on everything. But I feel like maybe for the live action recreations of their popular animated films, they might have a little tighter grip. So who knows?
So speaking of which, for a good example of that, I'm looking at Jon Favreau. He did the live action Jungle Book, and for the most part, that's probably been the most well received out of all the Disney live action movies.
Cinderella too was very well received.
Cinderella wasn't bad, and then he did Lion King, the live action Lion King, and that one, as everyone knows, is very mostly miss. Mostly a miss. And I'm wondering if I'm trying to look it up now. I'm wondering, is he doing the prequel to Lion King?
He's not. It's Barry Jenkins is doing Mufasa.
That's right. Okay. So that might be an example of that Disney is more than happy to be hands off when they can trust the artist, basically. Like Kevin Feige, say what you will about Eternals or Love and Thunder or Quantumania, Thor, The Dark World, whatever. I mean, say what you will about those movies. I've watched Eternals multiple times. That's probably my least favorite out of all the Marvel movies is Eternals, but it's still an enjoyable, watchable movie. So, yeah, I understand. Disney's like, Kevin Feige can do no wrong. Even if it's not the greatest movie, it's still good enough. Jon Favreau did fantastic with Jungle Book, and so they gave him basically the pride and joy of Disney animated by doing a live. I just thought of that just as I was saying it. So that wasn't intended to be a joke. But they gave him the reins to do Lion King, and then that didn't turn out so well. You don't see Disney going, hey, let's give you something else.
Well, so part of that also is that Jon Favreau is very like deeply entrenched in the Star Wars side of things too. So I think they like his work and what him and Dave Filoni are doing on the Star Wars side. So they're kind of like, hey, it's cool if you want to like spend your time doing that. And he's like, I would like to spend my time doing that. So just works out for everybody, honestly.
Yeah, so I see what Lego is saying here, that it was the guy that directed Pete's Dragon. Is it David Lowery? Is he doing
Lowery?
Oh yeah, it is. Okay. He was also the one who did Green Knight.
Yeah.
So yes, David Lowery is the director of Pete's Dragon. He's also doing Peter Pan and Wendy. He directed Green Knight. So yeah,
that's so interesting to me because I saw Green Knight in the theater, and I don't know. Like, I guess I would have to see Pete's Dragon. I obviously haven't seen the Pete's Dragon remake, or reboot or whatever you call it. But I'm not picturing like obviously if Green Knight's all I have to go off of, I'm not picturing like a wholly Disney-fied version of Peter Pan again.
Yeah,
on that front. But directors are capable of doing multiple different genres and multiple different styles. So I will not hold that against him. I will not hold Green Knight against him for doing Peter Pan.
Yeah. The downside with Pete's Dragon is, and my brother knows, Pete's Dragon's one of those movies I watched all the time as a kid. I love the original Pete's Dragon. They changed too much of it in the remake, and I was like, it was very, very boring. in my opinion. Like if you didn't love the original like I did, then it's probably okay. But yeah. Anyways. Next bit of movie news. Stephen Ewan is joining Thunderbolts.
Is he playing Invincible?
Yeah, that's what I was like. Is he invincible in this? We don't know who he's playing, so I don't know. I know, like, I see a lot of people are saying on the internet that he should be playing Sentry, and I'm like, no.
I don't know that makes as much sense.
For those of y'all who may not be familiar with comics, the Sentry is basically the Marvel version of Superman for all intents and purposes. There's a few slight differences, but I mean, it's pretty much Superman. I can't see Stephen Ewan playing that character. They need, like, I think you and I talked about this before. I would love to see them get Henry Cavill to play that character.
That's one of the two characters that Henry Cavill can play. That or like say like the Beyonder. But one of those two roles would be fun. It would be really fun to see Henry Cavill do it, just because it would be like a kind of a tongue in cheek, poke the bear type thing. Yeah, can't get him as Superman anymore, but you can get him as Marvel's version.
Yeah, that would be great casting. I do like your idea of the Beyonder.
Yeah.
Which again, we talked about like stuff. Beyonder is a character that's going to be more involved with Avengers Secret Wars, very likely. So that would be interesting.
Yeah. So like, I think I've heard about this, the talk about this stuff. I think I've heard some people say that Stephen Yeun should be playing Amadeus Cho, which in reality is not a great connection either. If he were, because he's too old, is what I'm getting at. He's too old to play Amadeus Cho. Amadeus Cho should be what, teenager, early 20s at latest, absolute latest.
Yeah. If they were to do Amadeus Cho properly, they would probably start him off like early teenager and just do a couple of like a movie or two as he progressively gets older.
And I just don't see a world right now, unless there's a interesting Hulk story that they want to do where there's just a bunch of Hulks all over the place. Unless they want to do that storyline, I don't see them introducing Amadeus Cho for a while.
Yeah. At least not until who actually can make a Hulk movie, until that gets cleared up.
Yeah.
Right now we're still stuck in the realm where Hulk will always have a Hulk-centered story involved in someone else's movie, like Thor Ragnarok did.
And they got enough going on between Hulk, She-Hulk, now Scar, and you know, leaders coming back. You know, you got potential for Red Hulk is out there with Harrison Ford coming in as Ross. So all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Harrison Ford doing Red Hulk would be great, but it's very likely going to be like it'll be the same motion capture that they use on Ruffalo.
I don't know that Harrison Ford can do the motion capture for Hulk.
Well, just as long as that Hulk's not flying a plane, he should be fine.
I will probably update my thoughts on that after we see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which also is premiering at cons, I believe.
Oh,
Kane. So
well, I was wondering what was premiering, because apparently nothing's premiering there.
Yeah, without Barbie, who really cares?
Thank you for that. So it's been reported that Hugh Jackman is possibly playing multiple versions of Wolverine in Deadpool 3, which would make sense because very likely this is going to be a movie that I don't know if what they're necessarily doing with Deadpool 3, if this is going to be a movie that will absolutely bridge the X-Men to the MCU, or if they're still wanting to find a way to bring the X-Men officially into the MCU naturally. Yeah. Again, very unlikely that Hugh Jackman is going to be playing Wolverine in the MCU, seeing how he was already ready to hang up the claws after Logan. And
no, we will inevitably get a new Wolverine. Yes.
Yeah, so it would make sense if there's going to be multiple versions of Wolverine, like we are seeing the Foxmen Wolverine that we're used to, and some kind of Wolverine that could be a placeholder for the MCU, much like what they did with Mr. Fantastic and Doctor Strange, Mom, whatever. So I feel like that's very possible, and that could be a lot of fun depending on what exactly they do with that. Because if this is going to be a version of Deadpool where he could be multiverse hopping, he could be visiting Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine in multiple versions. And I will put money on the table right now.
Oh God, such a close up of his armpit.
We will see this version of Hugh Jackman Wolverine. We will see Hugh Jackman in the Wolverine yellow and blue in Deadpool.
Maybe a very similar. We'll either see that or we'll see him in the orange and brown, because that was hinted at in like a deleted scene for
the Wolverine. Yeah.
This is interesting. I think it makes the most sense in the world, actually, because if you saw where Deadpool 2 kind of ended, Deadpool was, they say he was jumping through time, but I would say it's more that he was kind of multiverse hopping already in Deadpool 2. So they already kind of had Deadpool 2 leading into a world where he kind of connects into the MCU pretty well, actually.
Well, especially because one of the things he wanted that Deadpool was looking at doing, I think it was in a deleted scene or whatever, but there was that part where he was contemplating killing baby Hitler.
Yeah.
And if he actually would have done that, that would have been one of those splinters or whatever in time that they talked about in the Loki show with the time
would also be
diverging off.
Would also, if he's strictly doing time travel, it's also contradictory to how the MCU has produced or has introduced us to time travel in Endgame. So there's that as well.
Oh,
it makes more sense that he's multiverse hopping rather than time traveling.
Deadpool's probably going to look at it like, that doesn't make any sense. It's more like Back to the Future. He'll make some kind of throwaway comment about it.
The other reason I say all this is because we had that little blip in Deadpool 2 during that whole sequence where he went into X-Men Origins Wolverine and blasted that Deadpool in the head. So
that wasn't a time thing. That wasn't
a time thing. That would have had to been a multiverse thing at that point. So if you take that little throwaway joke that they did in Deadpool 2 as kind of like the foundation, it makes more sense that he's multiverse hopping, in which case, it makes a ton of sense that we would see Hugh Jackman reprising Wolverine in various multiverse forms or various variant forms. So
that's right, guys. Y'all are watching a live stream of two nerdy guys making sense out of the end of Deadpool 2, and it actually makes sense. Congratulations. Y'all chose the right show to watch tonight.
It's all connected.
He killed Ryan Reynolds reading the Green Lantern movie script, so that would be him in our universe, so to speak, like the actual world that we all live in.
Yeah.
So that's funny. Anyways, moving on. Let's talk. So this was I didn't want to necessarily talk about this until we looked into it and read a little bit more. And now this is an interesting conversation that I've actually been looking forward to having. The director of Shazam and Shazam: Fury of the Gods, David F. Sandberg, is saying that he's leaving it open and possible for a third Shazam movie, even though that was not mentioned or talked about by James Gunn when James Gunn did that presentation a month ago.
Yeah.
So, reasoning on this is because it seems like there's, I guess, not a lot of ticket sales so far for Shazam. There's not a whole lot of hype being generated.
Damage control.
So this makes sense because, again, I'll be completely honest, that the Shazam Fury of the Gods trailer just meh. I want to try to figure out, and I know I've talked about this subject before a couple of times. I'm wondering if there's an actual technical term that we could start using, because I feel like that would get the point across better, is that just looks like a very meh movie. It doesn't look like some massive like superhero epic. Like I would say Quantumania looked like a massive superhero epic. It didn't look like a formulaic by the numbers superhero movie like Shazam does.
The term you're looking for, I believe, is generic. It looks generic.
Yeah, I guess. I just feel like that term could have multiple meanings depending on everyone's perspective on what that word actually means. Like some people are like, I don't believe that's generic. Well, you don't understand the way I'm using the word generic then.
Yeah, there's nothing. So a lot of these movies, and yeah, we're going to do the Marvel DC comparison. If you talk about Infinity War, you talk about Endgame, obviously those are like in a class of their own because they are culmination movies. But also there's like stakes and whatnot to them. The MCU has done a good job in places here and there, not completely all the way throughout, but in places it has done a good job of giving stakes to individual stories that aren't culmination films like the Avengers movies are. This particular movie, one of the things that I think are going against this Shazam movie is, one, I don't know who the villains are, or outside of doing any comic book reading or research. Let's pretend I'm just general audience.
You should really be doing the research before you're on camera, though.
Sure. Let's pretend I'm general audience member, Joe Schmo going to the theater, just sitting there hanging out, watching the movie. I have no rhyme or reason to care about who these villains are and what impact they might have on the Shazam story. Shazam was several years ago at this point, not too long ago that a sequel doesn't make any sense here. But just long ago enough that the storyline and everything that happened in Shazam has kind of fallen out of my mind, out of my realm of caring. So when you're producing this, first of all, you're reminding me, oh yeah, I remember Shazam was a fun movie, I guess. I guess I'll go see a sequel. But if that's all you're doing, if that's all you're getting is I guess I'll go see it. And I remember the first one was fine. And then on top of that, you are coming in here with your new lead of DC Studios going, hey, everything is going away. We're going to do something new. Now, all of a sudden, you've kind of taken the wind out of the sails of, well, the first one was fun. I guess I'll go see it too. Well, I guess there's no reason to really care. I'm not seeing any reason to care in the trailer. I don't know if I have a reason to care now that I know that everything's kind of getting washed away. And so this is where you have David Sandberg coming in and going, wait. No. He could still be attached to the new DCU. I know James Gunn didn't say that, but he's kind of, if you think about it, if you look at the movie that came before, honestly, we'll say it for this one too, there's not a whole lot of really deep connection to the DCEU as it's existed. He could just kind of shoehorn himself into the new DCU. Closest thing, of course, being the headless Superman that we got at the end of the first movie.
I know we were talking about this before, but something that we forgot to mention when the two of us were talking, the trailer for this new Shazam movie has him like laying on a therapist's couch and he's talking about the other heroes, and it blatantly shows like Flash or Aquaman. It shows the other DCEU heroes
in the trailer.
Now, in the trailer, sure. Who knows if that's actually in the movie because, well, Ana de Armas is not in yesterday, so go sue them because of that. Such stupid BS, but whatever. We don't know if any of the actual
Rabbit Trail.
We don't know if any of the other DCEU characters are going to have any kind of a cameo or mention within the Shazam movie. Now, the benefit to that, even if they don't show them, that's fine. That works better for them. If they only get a mention, here's the thing. If there's a mention of, like, say, Wonder Woman, so obviously this movie's dealing with like the female gods as the villains here.
You'd think there'd be a connection here.
They could easily be mentioning Wonder Woman. The thing is it doesn't matter what DC universe we're showing in a movie. Wonder Woman exists. Wonder Woman will always be a part of the DC universe. So they're not necessarily talking about, say, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. They could now be talking about whatever new Wonder Woman we're about to get in the new DCU. So it works. It fits. And I like that idea.
Yeah. Again, the only thing that's really kind of keeping it down right now is that was obviously the Man of Steel Superman costume that we got at the end of the first Shazam. At that point, you wonder, would they even bother to kind of like redesign or in all the various digital copies of that movie that exist, say like on HBO Max or wherever, Would they kind of reintroduce at some point a different Superman costume to make it fit in? I don't know if they do that. I don't know if they bring back the Man of Steel costume and kind of utilize that again. I don't know if they go out of their way to do that just for the post-credit in Shazam. I think you just have to assume that Superman costume existed for this new Superman at some point, and it just works.
Yeah.
So that's the thought there. In reality, I have my doubts there's going to be a Shazam 3. I have strong doubts there's going to be Shazam 3, even if the director right now is saying that there's an open world for it. And that's exactly why. Well, what if there's a sequel? It's damage control. That's all it is. It's damage control. It's trying to convince people, hey, no, don't worry about that whole thing that James Gunn said. There's a chance this might exist in that. So you still do want to keep up with this story. And I don't think that's entirely true.
The problem with that, though, is if they actually are planning on doing a Shazam 3, by the time they get to filming that, what's his name? Asher Angel, who plays the kid Billy Batson.
Yep.
Is going to be an adult. So
that's a problem with Shazam as a whole, as a character, for doing a movie out of him more so than it is,
That's a situation. If they were really wanting to do that, they should have planned better and filmed like 3 movies back to back real quick with one overarching storyline to capitalize on his age at that time. It's possible to do that, but not by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is not going to devote that much time in movie onto a new superhero that's never been translated into a movie before.
Yeah.
Again, I could sit here and pick out all the faults that Warner Brothers has done, which we're about to here in a little bit.
Basically, the sum of all these parts is that the director's literally saying Shazam 3 could happen. Get your butts into the seats. Please go see our movie. Please go see our movie. Spend money on it. We would really like you to go see our movie. We worked long and hard on it. God, for the love of all things good and holy, please go see our movie. There's not going to be a Shazam 3. That's my bold prediction right now. There's not going to be a Shazam 3.
I don't think so either. And what's funny is the first Shazam was actually a good movie.
It's one of the better DCEU movies for sure.
It was. I do feel like it was kind of formulaic, generic as well, but it did have like the fun little twist on seeing again the whole idea of Shazam being a kid who says Shazam and becomes an adult.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was what made it really stand out from any other superhero movie. But now that we've already gotten that, now we're moving into, that's still a gimmick that's going to be involved, but it's not, it's lost its luster because of the first movie. That and Black Adam Black Adam was extremely generic and formulaic in the same exact way. So
not that bold. So I say bold like when a snack tells you that it's got a bold flavor that's barely different than the original.
Cooler Ranch Doritos.
Bold flavor.
Yeah.
Nope. Taste almost, you just put a little bit more seasoning on that chip than it had before.
Yeah. Okay. So more about Warner Brothers.
Oh, God.
Well, a couple of things here. First of all, they said that they are wanting to develop more Lord of the Rings movies. Those of y'all that are familiar with this channel know that both me and my brother, while we appreciate and we've enjoyed Lord of the Rings, we're not huge Lord of the Rings fans. Like, we're not sitting here diving into the lore or anything. I've watched the Lord of the Rings movies
a couple times,
probably 4 times in my entire life. Mm-hmm. All 3 of them about 4 times roughly. I've never watched the extended editions. I don't really want to.
So yeah, for me, the extended editions are the next ones that I will watch next time I do a Lord of the Rings watch through. I do actually enjoy all 3 Hobbit movies, which apparently that makes me a unicorn of some sort. Not everybody enjoys all 3 Hobbit movies. They might enjoy a couple here and there, but not all 3 of them. That's the extent of my enjoyment of Lord of the Rings. I do like them. I think they are good movies. I think for the 6 movies that we've gotten so far, not counting obviously the old animated or what have you, those 6 movies I think are a great world to dive into every so often for myself. It's not like one that I am intrinsically interested in spending much more time in. I think those are fine. To the extent that I myself tried to watch the Rings of Power show, and I turned it off, the first episode off while I was watching, because I just wasn't interested. It just wasn't for me,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I think that's perfectly fine. I think it's great for everybody who is really into that world, into Lord of the Rings. More power to them, and I think it's great that they have a show like Rings of Power. But it just wasn't for me. Just like I don't expect everybody to be into like The Mandalorian and Star Wars stuff.
So I was going to ask a question, but apparently Lego is in the chat, like sitting here answering it for me. I was actually curious, was there any other books besides The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit? Were there any other Middle-earth stories? Like, when I first heard that they want to make more movies, I was like, that's cool. I don't know if I didn't know there's any other books, though. Like, I thought it was just like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and that's it, roughly. Like, I thought, like, this was the show, Rings of Power. Like, is this, like, made-up story that's still within the Lord of the Rings?
I think it can still exist within, obviously, the canon of the movies, because the movies are the canon of the books.
Yeah, so this is the answers I was expecting by asking that question. So
and that's why I didn't ask the question, because I just generally had a feeling, I bet there are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait. She said there is a textbook known as the ill-pronounceable
Samarian.
Watch. I will try to pronounce it.
Samarian.
Samaria. Nope, it's unpronounceable. Never mind.
Silmarillion.
Yeah. It's just like the Lord of the Rings movies are good. I've actually come around and enjoyed them.
They're great movies.
Yeah, they're masterpieces in filmmaking, obviously. But again, I don't like medieval fantasy that much, so it's not something I flock to normally.
Or medieval adjacent.
Yeah. I mean, there has to be a very serious thing about it that makes me want to watch anything medieval. Say, like Army of Darkness. I love Evil Dead. You're going to throw Ash in medieval days? Cool. I'm all for it. Love that
Bride.
movie.
Hilarious.
Princess Bride is amazing, but that was playing more up on the humor and the comedy more than a actual medieval story of war and whatnot.
Yeah. Also, we may be misusing the term medieval here. Just stick with it. You know what we mean.
The Dark Ages type of time period like that. Yeah. Monty Python, The Holy Grail. Love that movie too. But again, that plays more on the actual comedy than it does.
Yeah. There's things to enjoy in that realm. But yeah, Lord of the Rings are great movies. I'm personally also just not interested.
So that's what I'm wondering. And going back to what people were saying as far as like superhero fatigue, are we going to end up getting Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien fatigue?
Not anytime soon. I think there's a lot of room to do stuff still, but.
So then that goes into the second thing that Warner Brothers said, or specifically Zaslav was saying that he wants the Lord of the Rings franchise to be like Star Wars. That's not happening. I mean, it's going to be it is an epic franchise. It is a massive franchise like Star Wars. Not quite Star Wars yet. I think it could have the potential to be a massively huge one. But the problem is that Lord of the Rings are all based off of pre-existing material, books. Star Wars was not. Star Wars is all freely created by George Lucas and then expanded upon by everyone else in the world.
Yeah. At some point, the beautiful thing about Star Wars right now is that you have folks like Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, who are creating stories in, like, say, the Clone Wars or Bad Batch or Mandalorian, all that. They're creating new stories in the universe of Star Wars, which makes sense because Star Wars is a wholly original universe from the mind of George Lucas on its own. Where in the Lord of the Rings is, like you said, it was adapted from Tolkien's books. It is a pre-established existing universe to create new stories in that. you have to be very, very careful with that, because we see where the fandom for Star Wars is at, wherein they make new things, and sometimes maybe some of those new things don't hit as well, or they don't resonate as well as prior stories, and that's with something that was already original. If you're doing that with Tolkien's stories, those have been beloved for decades longer than Star Wars. You know, those have been loved for quite some time. And yeah, I don't see a world where you're going to create more Lord of the Rings related material for too long that will continue to resonate as much as a lot of Star Wars stuff has for Star Wars fans. I think you're going to have a lot of people having a lot of problems with some new stories when they come out.
Yeah, so like this, he has a much bigger world that he's written down. I mean, George Lucas, I'd say, has made a huge world as well, but I think that's only measured in the fact that almost every single character that has ever appeared in a Star Wars movie has a fucking action figure with his own. They all have names, so like that's probably about the expanse of it. But what I'm wondering is, will Lord of the Rings ever get to the point, especially because J.R.R. Tolkien is no longer with us? Is it going to get to the point where other people are creatively coming up with their own stories? And again, I go back to, I don't know if this Rings of Power show, if this was like an original idea within Lord of the Rings, or if it actually is based off like a side book of the Lord of the Rings, or like if it's actually based on something that Tolkien has actually done. But like, are we going to get to the point where people are starting to just write their own like fan fiction basically and turning that into movies?
They're just doing fan fiction with a studio budget behind them.
Yeah. I mean, because that's basically where we're at with Star Wars right now.
Ish.
The Mandalorian was not a character that George Lucas came up with,
as far as we know.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. A lot of these, like George Lucas had his hand on at least mentioning the Clone Wars. He had an idea for the Clone Wars.
He had his hand on the animated show too.
Yeah, but then since that animated show moving forward, George Lucas has had really nothing to do with any of it. So,
yeah.
Okay, so Ring of Power is fan fiction with a canon. Okay. Yeah, because I know it takes place like at the like within the confines of the Lord of the Rings story. It takes place at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring.
That period of time that's described at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, where they're talking about how the rings got all divided amongst everyone. Yeah.
I don't see this going over as well, honestly. I think this... So here's the one thing. So yeah, there might be plenty of lore to talk about. I think the biggest problem that you have right now is honestly, I don't trust WB to do this whatsoever and do it successfully and well. They've already botched the DCU to the point where they are like, oh, they're tucking their tail between their legs and bringing in somebody to go, okay, well, maybe now we'll have a good handle on this. Maybe, maybe Zaslav is smart enough to get someone to jump on board and be the expert Lord of the Rings person to make sure everything feels like Tolkien's world and nothing is straying too far just because a director has their own vision for something. That's the biggest issue I see. I see an issue where a director's coming and going, I want to try some fun things. And, freedom for storytellers, I believe that completely. Let people tell stories, but at the same time, you have to still do it within the confines of the universe that you are creating under. And I don't know that WB is capable of finding, maybe necessarily finding someone who can keep control over that, or knowing exactly how they should be keeping control over that. I'm not saying it's going to be as extreme as like someone's going to come and be like, yes, Lord of the Rings, but what if laser weapons? I don't think you're going to see that situation happening. But something to the effect is going to rub the fan base the wrong way. And they're going to be like, that wouldn't exist under the ideas that Tolkien had to begin with. I don't know why you guys are implementing that. Boo this director, boo this sort. I just think there's going to be a ton of problems eventually down the road. Maybe your first few projects, no. But somewhere down at some point down the line, there's going to be a I don't know how I feel about that. That doesn't feel like a Tolkien thing.
They're going to turn it into The Last Jedi, and all the fans are going to go split about it, and hashtag not my Lord of the Rings or whatever.
Yeah, and so so this is a good example. So many Tolkien fans loathe the Rings of Power. If you're having that much of an issue, and this is the first thing that you're creating outside of, the two trilogies, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. This is your first venture outside of it. Granted, this was on Amazon. This isn't on, HBO Max or anything that won't. I can't remember if Warner Brothers is producing this.
But Peter Jackson still even had a hand in it.
Yeah. So, I think you're already kind of seeing I don't think it's fatigue. I just think it's a lot of people who have the Lord of the Rings up on a pedestal and don't want to see it tarnished in any way or tarnished in any way. I don't know. It will have to remain to be seen, because here's the thing. The beautiful thing about Star Wars is you can do new things with Star Wars, and you can kind of tell people to kind of just deal with it if it doesn't feel like how they envision Star Wars to be. You can just kind of be like, well, this is canon to Star Wars, so kind of just deal with it, because it's all original. It's all new. There's nothing to really base it off of except for the precedence of what Star Wars has done before. And, sometimes Star Wars has to do new things. But there is something for Lord of the Rings to base precedence on, which is the actual books that Tolkien wrote himself. And you kind of can't do the same thing with Lord of the Rings that you can do with Star Wars. Star Wars, you can continue creating new galaxies, not new galaxies necessarily, but new planets, new species, new storylines of individual characters that exist within the galaxy and have been affected by this, that, or the other event that occurred within, the Star Wars story. But I feel like, obviously there's a bunch of Lord of the Rings stories out there I don't know of, so I don't know how it goes beyond just the actual Lord of the Rings story itself, the story of the ring. But I don't know. I feel like there's just too much room. There's just too much potential to stray too far, and too many people will have too big of an issue with this. I don't know that you can do Lord of the Rings the exact same way that you did Star Wars. I just don't think you can.
Yeah. Well, this will be interesting to watch, and I would, again, safe bet. Not that I'm trying to be a negative Nancy, but we're gonna watch it fail. So that'll be interesting to watch it crash and burn.
Eventually. Warner. So we're going based off of a Warner Brothers track record at this point. And granted, yes, I realize that they were just still more recently bought out by Discovery. I still am not completely 100% convinced yet that Zaslav knows what he's doing with the whole of Warner Brothers yet. So
yeah, Warner Brothers and Sony, two studios that I just don't trust.
Yeah.
So. Anyways, that's going to do it for the tagline tonight. That's all of our movie news, y'all. So, let's quickly recap again some of the stuff that's been going on and what's happening, what's coming up. If y'all hadn't had a chance to check it out yet, there was the Cinefanatics podcast dropped yesterday. Audio version, pretty much everywhere you can get your audio podcast at. Video version is here on this channel. We were talking about what's going to happen in the future with the MCU and everything post Quantumania. There is Quantumania spoilers, so if you haven't seen it yet, go watch that before you watch or listen to the podcast. But yeah, we'll probably do that. We'll probably bring that subject up like every couple of movies, or as we watch another MCU movie that we feel changes the landscape of where we think it's headed, we may be inclined to do another podcast episode where we like, okay, well, with this information, here's where we think it's going to go now. So it won't be every MCU movie, but every couple of them probably, as something major changes. Tomorrow we are what?
I was just gonna say, I had something real quick that is gonna happen on this channel in the future. Got him.
Anyways, tomorrow we will be seeing Creed 3, so be on the lookout for our quick out of the theater thoughts on the YouTube shorts. Also, a full non-spoiler review later on tomorrow night, so be on the lookout for that. And Friday is the marquee. We are tier ranking the Rocky and Creed franchise with special guests John the Outlaw Roca, or the Outlaw John Roca. He will be joining us talking about Rocky and Creed. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that is this coming Friday, the 3rd at 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern, live right here. And then there is also going to be coming up on March 12th is the Oscars. And again, we will be doing our annual Oscars watch along. I know Garth said in the chat earlier, it's like 1995 Oscars. No, it's the 95th Oscars. Thank you for that, Garth. But we will be doing a live watch along Sunday, March 12th. We will be starting at 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. Usually we'll talk about the Oscars for about 30 minutes before the actual show starts. That's where we'll be talking about like last minute. We've caught up on all the most of the movies that were nominated, so we can have like a more well-rounded discussion of what we think is actually going to win. So come join us for that. We'll be watching it, streaming it. We'll be probably watching a stream version. We can't share that. Much like some people probably shared the big game on their stream.
We're not ridiculous people over on some random freaking streaming site sharing things that they definitely don't have the legal rights to share.
Yeah. We like being a YouTube channel that still is functioning. Anyway, so that is what's coming up. Make sure you follow us at Cinefanatics MLP on Twitter and Instagram. Again, give us a like on this video. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Those of y'all that are watching on a replay, thank you for coming back and watching this. Those of y'all that are watching live, we very much appreciate y'all being here. You can follow me at Robert Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, and youtube.com/@RobertAdamsMLP. I am updating my streams. I was working on it today, so there will be new streams and new video games to play on my streams coming very soon.
I promise.
I'm not
just saying this every week just to say it. This is actually happening.
At some point before the end of my life, I will stream again.
You can follow me at Chris Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, as well as twitch.tv/Chris Adams MLP, where I will be guaranteed, in fact, to stream probably this Sunday. It's not the Oscars this Sunday, right? It's not.
No,
it's
not this Sunday. Sunday.
I will be streaming this Sunday. We'll actually be jumping back into doing some Jackbox games on this Sunday. So if you would like to come play Jackbox games, Family Game Night's making a comeback this Sunday. So please come join me on twitch.tv/Chris Adams MLP. Even if you've never been to Twitch before, come hang out. It's fun.
Yeah. Garth is like, you should do movie reactions while in the theater. No, we're not that douchey Soups kid. So no. Anyways, that's gonna do it for tonight.
Barbie!
Again, thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for being here. We appreciate y'all. We will see y'all we'll watch our Creed reviews tomorrow, and we'll see y'all live on Friday for the marquee. Anyways, have a good evening, y'all.